Hi, this is Tim Fairfield from Keysight Technologies. I'm going to be talking about automation and how to get going quite easily automating instruments using Python. So before you even get started, why do you want to automate? Well, one of the reasons is for tasks that are repetitive, that may involve multiple instruments that you have to run over and over and over again, whether there's multiple instruments or a single instrument, automation is probably a good choice. Secondly, if you want to speed up testing, you could have multiple systems running and you can run the automation. So what that means is one person could run a number of parallel systems. You could rent them, you could buy them, and achieve your results much more quickly. You can use automation to write a simple application that is only used by you internally in a company. It also could be used for something that you could use to send out to the field or to manufacturing as well. So that's kind of some of the reasons why you would want to automate. So essentially, what kind of user are you? Either you're a person that doesn't do much coding, or you're actually a code warrior, okay? And if you are a person that does like writing code, this is for you. If you don't write any code, this is also for you, because there are ways to do automation without actually writing code at all. So there's some sequencing and automation that we can do without writing too much code at all, simply using an app, which is great. So a little bit about instrument control. There is a common instrument language across all vendors. It's called Skippy. That's one of them. And that's a common instrument programming language. And what's interesting about Skippy, this has been standard for many years. We're talking a couple of decades at least. And all instruments have a command set that are common among each of them. There's things like identifying the instrument, finding out what options are available, things like that. There are other commands that are very specific to instruments and specific to vendors. So for instance, if you have an oscilloscope, you may have sample rate, you may have memory depth, you may have input coupling. For a DC power supply, you may have input coupling, but you may have functions like automated measurements that are done by a multimeter that may not be done by the scope or may be implemented differently. And generally, Skippy is using 3-letter commands with parameters. And essentially, if you think about it, on an instrument, any dial or button that you can adjust manually when you're sitting on a bench could be automated generally. That's the rule. So it's very important to understand when you are making measurements, when you are automating it, don't forget that what you're first starting with is something you understand. That is, you are automating something that you would do manually. When you do that, you need to understand that, hey, I'm going to power up the supply. So if your objective is to measure rise time on a signal after you power it up during power up stages, you want to first sequence that. You want to turn on the power supply, but before that, have your scope ready to go, have your DMM or your DMM ready to measure if you want to do that. Also controlling the power supply. So you want to set the correct voltage and current limiting with that, and then you want to synchronize everything together. If you try to do that manually by hand, you'd be jumping around a little bit with your fingers, and you probably would be setting up the scope first, having everything ready and armed and ready to go, and then you would turn on the bench supply. So essentially, you do the same thing with automation. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. So I don't want to spend any more time talking about this. We want to move on. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about installation of some software utilities that Keysight has. I/O libraries, which is an I/O, basically do the generic test to check that you are communicating with the instrument correctly through software or multiple instruments. We're going to install Command Expert. Command Expert is a sequencing tool that makes automation much easier and much quicker. It's a self-documenting tool. We're going to be installing Python. So Python is the language that we're going to be running, and that will be, we're using a Windows system for this. And then we'll be talking about connecting the instruments and getting the I/O addresses. There's a couple of easy ways to do it. We can also use automated ways of getting that instrument address. Then we're going to run through Command Expert. What does it do? How to use it? We're going to write a quick and easy program. And then we're going to be exporting that code to Python and running the same automation with that. So just getting initial app going. And after that, we're going to be connecting to multiple instruments, showing how to do that. And then we'll talk about some advanced concepts. And after that, where to go from here. Some of the things to watch out for. So without wasting any more time, let's get to the fun part. So we're going to go